What is up? Welcome into the early edge, whatever this is called. We're just going to go live and just talk some basketball, what we're seeing right now, and then the games that we have tonight. So I'll tell you what, man, let's not waste any time. Let's bring these dudes in, get this thing going. Let's talk some shop here. Gentlemen, Mike McClure, see you, Nejad. See you. How we doing, buddy?
We're doing good. I got to be honest. I'm sweating the NC2A, but I'm also sweating some golf. I put out a pick on Twitter. It pushed, so I guess no harm, no foul. But in DFS, which Mike and I do a lot of, I'm in first place in one of the tournament contests. So hoping to pull that one off. But listen, I'm locked in. I've got the Duke play, which I put out on SportsLine. You know, down the stretch of the first half, they just didn't look right, but I'm still kind of confident in the pick. So we'll see how the second half opens up.
Yeah, well, I'll say this, man. Like, I was on the Duke Tennessee first half, and look, on this show, we have been cashing Tennessee first half unders game after game after game, and I tried to get ahead of the books. And look, it started off nice, dude. When we were 2 minutes in, right, you had 10 points, and it kept going. But Duke hit a stretch where they just couldn't score. And look, man, like, me and you were talking, off air before we went on. Tennessee does the same thing in the second half of games. So we'll see. It's going to be fun. Mike, first off, good to see you, buddy. Second, how we doing, man?
We're good. We're good. This game is fascinating. The line is obviously flipped at this point. It was 3.5 on the Duke side, minus 3.5. It's now minus 3.5 on Tennessee. They've got a nice lead. I think the story here, though, is Duke's lack of depth in this particular game. Mitchell's not out there. That's a pretty big deal in this particular spot. And then, of course, Roach, third foul right before halftime. The thing that's fascinating about this game is the bench minutes so far. You look at Duke, they've had 7 guys hit the floor total. They've had 14 bench minutes relative to 42 bench minutes in the first half. On the Tennessee side. So that is going to be significant. If you're watching the game, looking to live bet, do anything there, everything you should be concerned about in the first 5 to 8 minutes is all about Roach and whether or not he picks up the fourth foul. If he picks up the fourth foul, Duke has absolutely zero chance in this game. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at live unders because they're not going to score. If he picks up his fourth foul before, say, the under 12 timeout, this game may not get to 100 total points.
Wow. Yeah. The interesting thing, like, speaking of that in regards to his fouls, because you're obviously 100% right. But in the first half, I mean, to be honest, like, the refs kind of let him play a little bit, right? Like, I mean, they're letting him play physical. Tennessee's defense obviously is extremely physical in how they go about it. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see what the whistle looks like in the second half, but you're right. I mean, he picks up that fourth. Dude, that one's going to be big. Let's take a look here real quick. We've got 2 picks C and I are going to give out here. But let's just take a look at what we have on the board, just kind of catch up. All right, so first, Furman, San Diego State. San Diego State ends up winning 75-52. Obviously, they cover, what was that, 5.5? And then, halftime, Tennessee leads Duke 27-21. Mike, what did you say the live line was? 3.5 now for Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee minus 3.5, live total 114.
Nice.
114.5.
Nice. All right. And these times here are central, just because where I'm at the website. Arkansas, Kansas, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Princeton, Missouri, 6:10 p.m. Eastern. Auburn, Houston, 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Penn State, Texas, 7:45 p.m. Eastern. Northwestern, UCLA, 8:40 p.m. Eastern. Maryland, Alabama, 9:40 p.m. Eastern. So I'll tell you what. See ya. Let's go ahead and knock some bets out real quick. So you got one play here. I'll throw it to you, man. What you got?
Yeah, I almost had 2 plays with this 4:15 game, but I decided to back off a little bit. But I do like Auburn. I like Auburn +5 against Houston. And a lot of it is for some of the obvious stuff that we kind of all saw last time we saw Houston. We saw Marcus Sasser, he came in and he came right out. And I just don't think with a soft tissue injury like that he's just going to be 100% in playing Marcus Sasser basketball. Honestly, if I had to put money on it, and listen, I'm not a doctor, I don't know the extent of the injury, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see the same exact thing that we saw last game with Marcus Sasser coming in, aggravating something, or just being relatively ineffective because of that groin injury and sits out a lot of the game. And then you got Jamal Sheed, who's also nursing a knee injury. So, it's an Auburn team that's pretty good. They played very good basketball over the last month. And I don't think they're intimidated by this Houston team, especially if Houston is going to be without Marcus Sasser for big minutes, which I'm anticipating. So if I'm getting +5, I mean, there is also the added effect of Auburn playing near home, which I think matters at least a little bit. Auburn +5 seems like a good number here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. They're playing there in Birmingham at the BJCC. I've actually been in that arena for a George Strait concert. And then I forget what the other thing was. Yeah, it was like some like AAU basketball thing, whatever. But you're right. I mean, it's a damn home game. You know what I mean? Like, the funniest part is that the fans are actually the loudest part is Alabama and Auburn fans screaming at each other, right? Like, because that's the loudest part. So, but no, you're right, man. Yeah, I like that play. Auburn's definitely a popular one. I'm gonna go UCLA minus 7.5 against Northwestern. Look, Northwestern's been a great story, right? They're a good basketball team. I just don't know how much they're going to score today, right? And I feel like UCLA has kind of looked around. They've seen Arizona get bounced out. They've seen Purdue get bounced out. And they're pretty high seed up there, obviously. And I think it's just a foot on the gas pedal type game, right? Like, you just keep Northwestern out of it and just run it. Like, just run your offense, right? Like, you're taller, you're bigger, you're way more athletic. That's what I'm going with it. So that's what I'm on. Those are our two plays here. Now, let me pull the screen back up. All right. And we're just going to kind of go game by game here. And I'll just throw it to you guys. Mike, if you got any data, thoughts, see ya, exact same thing. Let it rip, man. We're just going to have some fun. Everybody in the chat, first off, obviously, it's good to see you. Number two, if you have any questions on any game, dude, drop them in, right? Joey Burr, real quick, ask you, see ya. How do you feel about the money line in regards to Auburn?
Oh, I mean, I'm a pretty conservative bettor. I'm going to take the points here. I think this could be an Auburn win. I think the money line's fine if you want to do that. But for me, I'm always going to take the points, especially when it's 5. I mean, it'd be different if it was Auburn plus 1.5. Then maybe you could argue taking the money line there. But no, I'll take the 5 point. Feel free to do it because to the point of the question here, I do think Auburn can win this game, but 5 points is a lot, so I'm going to take it.
Yeah, the interesting part too is like we're watching Tennessee here, like. Auburn can play very similar in regards to Bruce Pearl and the defensive approach. Like, they get in rock fights as well. You know what I mean? Like, you could get some low-scoring games. And Houston, I mean, I don't know their pace. Mike, they're one of the slower-paced teams in the country, right?
Yes, one of the slowest, 350th or so. Wow. Basically at this level of competition, they are the slowest team.
And especially a team that's banged up as well. So, yeah, we'll talk more about that one. All right, first up, let's start Arkansas, Kansas here. All right, Kansas 4-point favorite, a total of 143.5. Bill Self, I believe, not coaching this game, right?
Correct.
Yep. Correct. All right. Yeah, so, Mike, I'm going to throw it to you. See it. Jump right in. Mike, any thoughts you have on the data numbers that you're seeing, type of a feel? What you got?
Yeah, this one's fascinating. Obviously, Self not being there, I think that you could maybe make the argument it's worth half a point, maybe a point if you really want to get extreme with it. I don't think it matters a ton in this particular spot. The coaching staff's been together for a number of years here. As far as the game goes, though, I think what's fascinating about it is if this were a regular season game, the total on this game would be 151.5, 152.5, right? We've seen this thing plummet. Every game in the tournament basically has gone under so far, I believe. Unders are 28-9 so far in the NCAA tournament here. We've seen aggressive moves towards the under. We've seen a little bit of buying back, though, as this game hit down to 142 briefly. But what's fascinating is these teams are very fast in pace, and they both want to play the same style. Both of these teams want to score in transition. That's exactly what their goal is. I make the game 5. I think there's a little bit of an edge on the Kansas side here. I do think Arkansas is a team that can be live. I love that the freshman Smith is playing. Where they fall short is they're a terrible free throw shooting team. You rate 270th in the country in free throw shooting percentage. That is a recipe for an early exit in March. I think that they have the overall talent to win this game. They have the overall talent to continue to move on. There's no doubt about it. I think that they will struggle to close games out in this particular tournament and against opponents like this. So I like Kansas as the lean. And I believe my total is pretty much dead on where it's at right now.
Yeah. See your thoughts here, man.
Yeah, my lean would probably be the other way with Arkansas getting the points, the +4, which is what I think it's at right now. I just think Kansas has looked a little sketchy down the stretch, especially against, good athletic teams. And we saw them get completely worked by Texas. And I just think Arkansas is just athletic enough to just get up and down the court and score and just D up against Kansas. So the Bill Self thing, it doesn't concern me too much. Although when you watch Kansas play against Howard of all teams last game, yes, of course they pulled away, but I mean, there were things in there that you started to think to yourself, like, what's going on with Kansas, especially coming off those losses to Texas. So it's one of those things where I think they're catching Arkansas perhaps at the wrong time. And I think +4, I think this is another one where you could consider the money line. I wouldn't do that, but I think Arkansas +4 is the play here. It's almost a play I actually made. And keep in mind, this when you look at the seeds and you look at the line, I mean, it does seem kind of fishy, right? You would almost think Kansas would be favored by more than 4 points in this matchup. There's a reason that they're not.
Yeah, there are a couple here that stuck out to me in terms of the spreads, and we're going to get to them. Some notes here, some nuggets on this game. Let's see. The under is hit in 7 of Arkansas's 9 NCAA tournament games under Eric Musselman. Arkansas 6-2 against the spread in neutral site games this season. Kansas, they're 3-1 against the spread since the start of the Big 12 tournament. Kansas 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games as a favorite of 5 points or fewer. A question real quick, Mikey, you brought up in terms of the totals. All right. We had a question in the chat here. Let me find it. All right. Darrell Williams asks, how do you feel about the understreak for totals? Regression?
I mean, we typically see unders all the time when you play neutral site games. It's the only time of the year where you guys are playing back-to-back games with very short turnaround times. Typically has a ton of impact on shooting percentages in general. Typically impacts the pace of play a lot. So, this season in college basketball, one of the best seasons for overs we've seen in quite some time. I wouldn't say that things are, you can call it regression if you want to. I would say it's been very normal in terms of how games have played. We just saw a ton of inflated lines because of how fast the season played in regular season basketball, but it's a totally different game in this format.
Makes sense. All right, let's jump on the next one here. We got Princeton, Missouri, tips off at 6:10 p.m. Eastern. Missouri 6.5-point favorite, a total of 146. All right, so I'll just ask the question here. What do you do in terms of betting a team like Princeton that, quite frankly, nobody thought that they would be here, right? It probably including themselves, right? Like nobody thought it. And you got a Missouri team that's pretty good. Yeah, like Sia, I'll throw it to you first. Mike, numbers, your thoughts as well, right after Sia.
Yeah, this one was definitely a stay away for me because I do like Missouri, but and especially because of Kobe Brown and Hodge. I said Kobe Brown. Yeah, Kobe Brown and Hodge. But I think Brown is really going to take this game over. I think he's going to be the go-to guy. He's the superstar of this game. And I think that's why Missouri ends up winning. But 6.5 is a lot. And so for me, it's a stay away. I'll tell you one thing I did, and I didn't put it out as an official play because I tend to not put out money line parlays as official plays. But one thing I personally bet that I do want everybody to know is I took Missouri money line with a game later, which is the Texas money line, which I know Mike has a lot to say about that game in particular. So everybody stay tuned for that. But that paid almost, it was basically 1-to-1, so you're getting, I think it was plus 90. So, you're paying a little bit of juice on that parlay, but I did like it because I do think Missouri is going to win this game.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah. The beauty of, it's a very difficult skill to master. It's one that's taken me, a decade to get to, but you do not have to bet every game. You don't have to have an opinion on every game. And this game is one that, I wouldn't bet it, right? You could offer me a 30% profit boost on the game, and I probably still wouldn't risk any money on this game. I personally have no interest in playing this game. If you want to go for it. I think that Missouri, they had some really good shooting luck in that game. I think they were lucky to get by Utah State personally. I don't think that they're a great team. I think they're a high variance team because of how they play. They're definitely going to look to push the pace. I question how disciplined they are. They're a team that's a lot like Arizona, a lot like Memphis. They've got a lot of individual raw talent. They struggle to piece it all together at any given time. When you play a team like Princeton that's incredibly disciplined, I think that the game could get overly competitive at any time. So it's boring for breaking it down, but there are a lot of other games. And the beauty of this one is there's already going to be a Kansas-Arkansas game going on, and there's going to be that Auburn-Houston game right after it. You don't have to watch this one. So sorry, TNT. Looks like you've got that covered, Twindo, but we're not going to have the channel tuned into that one.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that, man. Like, I have no idea what to do. Like, do you fade Princeton? Do you roll with them? Missouri, like you said, I mean, they're just not as consistent as some of the other guys on the board. Let's talk about the next one. You just brought it up. Auburn and Houston. All right, 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Houston, 5.5 point favorite, total 132. Mike, throw it back at you, man. What are your thoughts here?
Yep, we're dead on there. I like the under in the game, but I think that it could get a little sketchy, so I haven't played it. It just doesn't fall within my threshold. It's close. It's within half a point. But I definitely could see this one going under as well. As far as the spread, I make it 5.5 now at this point. If this were a regular game on regular rest, that number would be 8. So we've seen a pretty significant downgrade there. Houston, I believe, let me double check on the Houston side. I believe this is game 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be game 5 in 8 days.
Damn.
That's tough to do, especially when you're dealing with injuries and playing a road game tonight. So I think the most underrated aspect of this game is at the end of this game, they sell tickets. It comes in a package, right? So they're not clearing the gym between games. So anyone that's buying tickets for this Alabama game is arriving at the end of this game. And if you're Alabama, there's nothing you would like more than to see a team like Houston lose this game. If this game is remotely competitive in the second half, it will be a true home game for Auburn in the second half here. And again, you're talking about a team playing their 5th game in 8 days, something NBA teams don't even do. And when they do it, they have significantly better travel accommodations. They're getting paid nicely. Some of the kids that are playing in this game, it could be the last game of their career. They may, life can get very different for them depending on the result of this game. There's a lot of pressure for a lot of the people on the floor in this game. So it's just very different than an NBA team playing their 5th game in 7 days, which they do at times. Every team does that once per year in the NBA. So
I think you just brought up okay, first off, somebody in the chat said it. Ezra said Mike should write a book on gambling. First off, I agree, and I'd be the first one in line to buy it. Number 2, I think you just brought up
idea.
Dude, right?
It really is.
Yeah, and I think you just brought up some excellent points there, man, of the difference of, obviously the NBA, college basketball, right? Of where these kids, it could be their last game. There's a lot of significant different things in front of all of their family because it's essentially home games. And what you just said about the Alabama factor too, you're right. This might be the only time in history that Alabama fans are actively rooting for Auburn. You know what I mean? Dude, that's a great point, man. See, what are your thoughts here on Auburn and Houston?
Yeah, it's definitely one of my picks, but I will mention that it's plus 5.5 now. So, I mean, it has been for the last few hours. So the number I got on SportsLine, I think I put it out at 5, but just so everybody knows it's 5.5. I do like that. And again, I just think, listen, Auburn's a very inconsistent team too. I mean, they just recently got crushed by Kentucky, but they also crushed Missouri. They beat Iowa. They lost to Arkansas by 3. They beat Tennessee, lost to Bama in overtime. So this is a team that knows they can beat a team like Houston, even with Marcus Sasser. I mean, I think it would be kind of a long shot with Marcus Sasser being healthy, but I think this team smells blood in the water, or at least sees it, with Marcus Sasser being kind of banged up and maybe Sheed being banged up as well. So I think it's just such a good opportunity for Auburn to pounce, and I expect them to do it.
Nice. I'm looking at the chat here. Tina says there's the foul on Roach. Was that 4? That's what we're looking for, right?
Did they? I don't know if he got a foul, but if he did, yeah, I guess that would be 4.
Well, yep, that's his 4th foul.
Nice. All right. And look, I'll tell you, I'm watching the bottom half of it actually on this screen. It's right behind me. So I'm seeing, bits and pieces here. I'll try to watch it. All right, let's jump to the next one here. All right. Penn State, Texas. This was fascinating to me as well, man. You've got Texas, 5.5 point favorite. Total of, what is that? 137 here. Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you. I believe you've got some thoughts on this game. Let it rip, man. What you think?
Yeah, so I don't have quite the computer edge that we did on Indiana yesterday, but if you followed, I loved Indiana yesterday. It was my favorite play of the tournament round 1. This Texas Penn State game profiles the same way. I think the more likely outcome here is Texas winning this by double digits and comfortably cruising to a victory in this spot. Penn State, much like Houston, they are in a severe rest disadvantage. Not only that, they've been playing incredibly high stress games. Outside of the last one, of course, that wasn't terribly high stress late, but every game before that. So this will be game number 6 in 9 days for them, even more intense than Houston's 5 and 8. So they're coming into this game against a Texas team that can play many different styles of basketball. I think that playing in the Big 12 definitely will have tested Texas enough to handle the style of play that they're going to see here. So I like Texas in this game. I haven't played it yet. I believe my number on it's like 8. I would want it to be 10 before I would like really like that's an auto play. Got to play it. I'll be looking at it live in game, watching for things there. But let's see where my exact 8.2 is my number on this game. Yeah, close. I haven't played it yet, but I do like Texas a lot here. I think that they. Yeah,
Dude, I was gonna say you just convinced me. Like I'm on Texas now. Like I'm literally about to bet Texas. I'm down with it. I like it, man. See, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I have some thoughts, and I'm so comforted by what Mike said, but I do want to point out Faustino Hernandez in the chat. He says Texas is winning the tournament. Mike, I believe you might have mentioned something to that effect. Maybe you didn't say those exact words, but your thoughts on Texas before I give my take, because that's a pretty big take that Faustino is making, right? But
I love Texas. I make them the best team in the tournament right now. Second best team is Alabama. I would have Alabama as the top team if Brandon Miller were healthy. He is not healthy. I think they're potentially on upset alert against Maryland. We'll talk about that tonight. I'm very, very worried about Brandon Miller's injury. You remove an NBA player from the team, and they are a very average team. When he's playing, they're very, very tough to beat. So, but I have Bama and Texas in the final with Bama winning. But if I were to do it over again, it would be Texas over Bama in that game.
So let me just pick up on that because I am watching the Duke game. So just to verify for everybody that Roach does have 4 fouls, and Duke had cut this game to 2. It's now 5. So they're definitely potentially in a little bit of trouble with Roach on the sideline there. Apparently he's a little gimpy as well. But yeah, I like Texas too. And we were talking beforehand. And Mike, part of the reason I asked you about that game before we went live was because I thought Texas might be able to handle PSU, Penn State, pretty easily as well. And so for you to confirm that, I might have to jump on this one because the role that Texas has been on, I mean, they just absolutely stomped Kansas twice. And Penn State's been winning, but they've also been winning some very, very close games. We mentioned the rest disadvantage that they have as well. But a lot of these close games, that's great. You can close games out, but those aren't against the caliber of the Texas teams. And we know those close games could have gone the other way quite easily because that's just the nature of close games in college basketball. So I think I agree with Mike. I think Texas could potentially run away with this one.
We'll give some stats here on Penn State. All right. They're 9-0 against the spread in their past 9 games as an underdog. Penn State 5-0 against the spread since the start of the Big Ten tournament. All right. Penn State, they've played 8 neutral site games this season. They covered all 8 against the spread. Now, that's over the entire season. Take it for what it's worth. It's just fascinating. Texas, they've covered 6 straight games as well. The under has hit in the past 6 games involving Texas as well. All right, jump to the next one here. Northwestern, UCLA. UCLA, 7.5-point favorite. Total of 126.5. See ya. Throw it to you first, buddy. What do you think?
So this is interesting because and I like your pick, Allan, but the interesting thing for me is going into the tournament, if Jalen Clark was healthy, if he was playing, which of course he's not going to be, UCLA was going to be my team to win it all. And I had to back off in the few brackets that I filled out. I had to back off because I just didn't know what UCLA was going to be without him over the course of, 5-6 games. And so for this one, it was a stay away for me because I thought, well, maybe Northwestern can keep it close. I don't mind your pick at all. For me, this is just a stay away, but because I still haven't been able to fully evaluate the injuries that UCLA has sustained.
Yeah. Mike, jump in, man. What do you got?
Yeah, this one is fascinating. UCLA definitely is a more talented team and a team that we really like because they play great defense. The issue with this game for me is this style of play definitely is how you end up winning basketball games. Sometimes you will win a lot of games that you don't end up covering the spread in this particular spot. This one here in the final minute, this requires us to be up 12 points essentially to really come down with the win here and not give up that 3. So it's tough. I'm not interested in playing the spread personally, although the outcome of UCLA winning this by 15 to 20 points is certainly there. But when you play such a slow style of game that limits the possessions overall, and the opponent wants to do that, you leave yourself really vulnerable to variance in terms of shooting performance when you're just limiting that number of possessions. So I think that It's another game. I'm not going to bet it. It's really, really tough to call. Not going to be surprised at all if UCLA wins this by double digits very, very comfortably. But Northwestern's going to play into their game. They want to play slow. Northwestern knows they have no chance of winning this game if it requires scoring 80 points.
Yeah.
They want to win this game by scoring 65 for sure.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you bring it again, you bring up a good point. Like, games that are slower paced, fewer possessions, lower scoring totals. 7.5 big spread. You know what I mean? Like, no matter how good. And you also bring up another good point too, that with these games, man, like this sentence is going to sound crazy, but it's not. Like the difference of winning by 15 and the difference of winning by 6 is not all that much, right? Like, like a couple.
It's one made 3 in the final 90 seconds. Yeah,
exactly. Right. Like, I mean, it can completely change just like that. So, man, that's an excellent point. And you know what? Me and C will be in line together to buy that book. I like it. All right. Last one here. Right. All right. Last one here. Maryland, Alabama. Mike, I'm gonna let you go first because you kind of opened it with some thoughts there. One question, Mike, real quick. Jump off Duke, take the under 116.5. Anything live that you're seeing that you feel from Duke, Tennessee?
I'm probably not going to play anything here on it. If anything, it's still going to be a look on the Duke side with the points live. I think that the most likely outcome here is they still make this competitive and don't get totally blown out. When you look at what's happening in the game, it's Roach with the 4th foul, right? We're down to the 12-minute mark. If they're within 6 points at the 8-minute mark, he's coming back in the game. There's literally nothing to save him for. So I personally think that this is still looking like a one-possession basketball game. It's highly vulnerable, so I totally understand if no one wants to play it right now. I personally haven't played it. While we're doing the show, I'm most likely not going to play it. But I think it's far too early still, considering the rest of this game. So if you look at the rest of the game here, Duke's only got 1 foul. That foul on Roach, that was the only foul of the half for them, right? So we're nowhere near.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're nowhere near putting them in the bonus. It would take a massive breakdown for Tennessee to be shooting free throws in the rest of this game in terms of just on foul volume alone. So I do lean to the under because of that. But to say Duke's out of it is totally wrong at this point, in my opinion, because I think that they're a well-coached team, and down 8 right now. If that becomes 11, he's back in the game instantly because there's no point in saving him anyway. So,
All right.
And I think that in this particular spot, considering how few fouls they've called, I do think he's likely to get a little bit of leeway from the officiating crew on a 5th foul. I think that everyone in the building is, considering Duke's how thin they are today, I think every official there is hyper aware of that situation and how many he has.
Yeah, he'd have to really bring a hammer down to get called on the foul. I feel you. All right, Maryland, Alabama. Bama, 8.5-point favorite, total 142. Mike, thoughts here? See you, follow him up, man.
Just to prove my point, he's back in the game now. He just had the assist.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, it makes sense. They're a smart team. It's the highest leverage point of the game. They've got to play him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You also bring him back right before 11 or 12 minutes left. You get an under 12 media timeout here, so you're really. Can he go 2 possessions without getting a foul? Yes. Can he contribute offensively? He did with an assist, right? You got to play him there in those particular spots for sure. So
nice. All right, Maryland, Bama. What are your thoughts, man?
This one's fun. We talk about it a lot in college basketball, but you got contrasting styles here. Maryland, much like Houston, they want to play incredibly slow, and Bama wants to run. The story, though, is Brandon Miller. Is he healthy or not? That's the real story here. Only played 19 minutes in the first round game. Didn't score a point. They didn't need him. They may not need him to win this basketball game. To win it by double digits, they might. So I think the game could be competitive. It's all coming down to his status. How healthy is he? Does he aggravate anything? Because if they find themselves in one of those one-possession basketball games that's tight, he's the NBA player on the floor that can get to the rim or the foul line at any given moment or hit the 3 from the top of the key. They really don't have anybody else that's going to do that in a one-possession game.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The one thing I'll say is that this almost feels like we're going in a little blind because of Brandon Miller. It might be a good live bet opportunity because if we notice that maybe he's just not in at the beginning of the game, well, that's different. But if he's in the game and he doesn't seem like he's 100%, or whatever, maybe he doesn't start or he gets taken out early, whatever the case may be, the live line might not adjust fast enough. And you might be able to grab something still with Maryland, plus a decent amount of points. So it's just something to consider. I think this is probably too many points. So my lean would be to Maryland, but without knowing what's going on with Brandon Miller, it's just we're going in a little blind here.
Yeah. All right. I like it, man. I'll tell you what, that's pretty much it. Like, we've kind of gone through everything. I'll say, before we hop out of here, we had a question Galaxy asked, and see, I'm going to throw it to you. Mike, you gave yours, but see, since you're on Auburn, go ahead and hit it, man. What do you think about Auburn?
Oh yeah, so you might be late to the show, Galaxy, which is totally fine. But yeah, I like Auburn. I like Auburn plus 5.5, and it's because, speaking of injuries in that Alabama game, I just think there's a lot of unknown in the Houston game, but I'm kind of falling on the side of known when it comes to Marcus Sasser, because I just don't think, based on what I saw prior to last game that Houston played and in Houston's last game, I just don't think he's even remotely healthy. I understand he's saying he's 100%. That doesn't have any value to me. What has value to me is what I saw last game, which, by the way, was less than 48 hours ago. So the idea that he's just going to come out and all of a sudden that soft tissue injury is going to magically be great, that seems extremely unrealistic to me. And Auburn knows that. Auburn's going to attack. And Houston looked pretty bad, actually, without Marcus Sasser on the floor. They looked a little lost. They've got a couple days to potentially adjust to that. But considering how much Houston has played over the last 8 to 14 days, and considering the injuries that they have, this seems like a really good opportunity for Auburn to cover.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Galaxy says, thanks so much, guys. Good insight. Good luck. Hey, man, back at you, buddy. Good luck to everybody here. Last one. Mike, what are we thinking the number to take Duke live? Is there anything that's in your head, and obviously the time in the game, affects that as well. And you don't have to go full deep on that. Yeah.
Time matters a lot. I think it's still a live under or nothing at this point. It all comes down to Tennessee. Duke's made 2 excellent pushes so far in the second half. Tennessee's hit a huge corner 3 in both instances immediately back. You need Tennessee to miss that 3 for sure. If they hit another big 3 like that, this game gets out of hand. But I know everybody wants to make the live play. I personally think it's a better situation. Just watch and enjoy the game. It's incredibly vulnerable at this point. So not something that I want to jump in on at this point. As far as the Houston game, though, just last thoughts on there. I'll tell you the most important player on the floor tonight for me that I'm watching, Houston guard Emmanuel Sharp. He is a freshman. He was massive against Northern Kentucky. Came in off the bench, had to because of the injuries to Sasser and Shed, who was hobbled a little bit at that point. He's a freshman, hit 2 big threes, went to the free throw line, hit both of his free throw attempts. His 10 points, very much the difference in that basketball game. He might be forced into a much, much bigger role against a significantly better defensive team in Auburn.
Makes sense. All right, guys. Appreciate your time, man. It was awesome. Thank you so much. And look, I'm going to end it with this. Rebecca says, I'm going to need those corner threes to drop. Spoken like a great Tennessee fan right there. All right, everybody, thank you so much. We'll be live Sunday, normal time, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're also going to run it back 4 p.m. Eastern as well to kind of chop it up and take a look at the afternoon games. But till then, everybody, best of luck. It's Cash's Tickets. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.